During the 19th century BC, Egypt flourished under the mighty rulers of the 12th dynasty, an era remembered for stability, prosperity, and architectural innovation. Under the long and illustrious reign of Pharaoh Amenemhat III, the Egyptian kingdom reached heights never seen before in the Middle Kingdom. Trade expanded, agriculture thrived, and the Nile's blessings continued to nourish a growing civilization. But behind the grand temples and fertile fields, a crisis loomed, one rooted in the fragile line of succession. Amenemhat III had a son, Amenemhat IV, who succeeded him but reigned for less than a decade. His short reign, though relatively peaceful, ended without a male heir to take up the crown. This unexpected gap in leadership created a moment of tension among the elites of Egypt. For centuries, the role of pharaoh was strictly reserved for men, seen as the living embodiment of Horus, the falcon-headed god. A woman had never officially been crowned with full royal titulary, and yet, Egypt stood on the brink of chaos unless a decision was made. In a bold and unprecedented move, the Egyptian elite chose to elevate Sobekneferu, sister of Amenemhat IV, to the throne. Her rise shattered a thousand-year tradition and redefined what was possible for women in the ancient world. According to the 3rd century BC priest Manetho, she was not only Amenemhat IV's sister but possibly his wife, a common royal practice to preserve dynastic purity. Inbreeding among Egyptian royalty was a strategic but dangerous tradition. Though it helped centralize power and avoid political rivalries, it often resulted in fragile heirs and shortened lifespans. Sobekneferu's ascent was not just a succession of blood but of strength, intellect, and divine timing. Her name, meaning, the beauty of Sobek, tied her to the crocodile god of fertility, power, and the Nile. This symbolic association elevated her not just politically, but spiritually in the eyes of the people. Yet her reign was controversial. Some Egyptians saw it as a disruption of Ma'at, the cosmic order and moral balance, which they believed should always be upheld by a male ruler. Still, Sobekneferu stepped into the fire, claiming the full titulary of kingship. She wore male garments, adopted the title, son of Ra, and appeared in public adorned in symbols of power. She didn't disguise her gender but used the traditional visuals of kingship to stabilize her legitimacy. Her boldness stood as both defiance and wisdom, a gesture toward continuity in an uncertain time. Sobekneferu's rule, though brief, was marked by both strength and subtle resistance. She reigned for 3 years, 10 months, and 24 days, as recorded in the Turin King list, and during that time she had to contend not only with external threats but also the internal skepticism of a patriarchal society. Despite assuming the full titles and duties of a pharaoh, many traditionalists viewed her with suspicion. Female rulers, though not unheard of, were often seen as temporary placeholders until a male heir could be found. Egypt's deep-seated spiritual and cultural norms favored men, and many citizens believed that a female pharaoh was a violation of divine order. To counter this, Sobekneferu leaned heavily on symbolism. Her choice of name alone signaled strength. Sobek, the crocodile god, was seen as the source of the Nile and the bringer of fertility, protection, and raw force. Aligning herself with Sobek tied her authority to one of Egypt's most powerful deities. The association also played well politically, as the cult of Sobek was rising in popularity at the time, especially around the Fayum oasis. Sobekneferu was a master of visual messaging. In surviving statues and art, she is depicted wearing a male kilt over a female dress, blending masculine authority with feminine grace. Though her statues are few, many having been lost, destroyed, or purposefully excluded from king lists such as the Abydos list, her presence is undeniable. Her name appears in the Karnak king list and the Saqqara tablet, and several artifacts bearing her seal and titles have been discovered, including scarabs, seals, and cylinder inscriptions. These physical traces may be limited in number, but they speak volumes about the queen who refused to be erased. One such piece, a damaged statue, shows her in typical male attire, yet clearly retaining elements of womanhood. This artistic balance demonstrated her refusal to disguise who she was while also honoring the masculine traditions of kingship. Egyptologists believe this visual compromise was key in appeasing both the gods and her critics. Yet her reign was not simply about self-presentation. Sobekneferu governed during a sensitive transitional period, and her duties involved securing Egypt's borders, upholding trade routes, and managing the religious and bureaucratic systems that kept the kingdom running. Her rule followed a long period of strength, and though it was short, she is credited with maintaining much of that stability. She also contributed to the mortuary complex of her father, Amenemhat III, especially at Hawara, a site that became legendary through the writings of Herodotus. One of Sobekneferu's most significant contributions lies in her architectural works, particularly the continuation of Amenemhat III's funerary complex at Hawara, near the Fayum oasis. This pyramid, surrounded by what would become known as the Egyptian labyrinth, was one of the grandest architectural undertakings of the Middle Kingdom. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, marveled at the sheer complexity and majesty of the labyrinth. He claimed that even the greatest works of the Greeks paled in comparison to the effort and expense invested in the labyrinth of Hawara. According to his account, the underground complex housed over 3,000 chambers and rooms, arranged in a maze-like configuration that symbolized the journey through the afterlife. Sobekneferu's involvement in expanding or possibly completing this structure reinforced her connection to both divine legacy and royal tradition. In contributing to her father's burial site, she not only honored Amenemhat III's reign but also asserted her right to kingship by association with his spiritual journey. Yet this monument, like many others, fell victim to time and human greed. The polished white limestone that once covered the pyramid was later stripped away by builders of later dynasties and civilizations. Today, only the core of the pyramid remains, reduced to a weathered mound of mud brick and scattered stone. Despite its ruined state, the significance of Sobekneferu's involvement in its construction remains etched in the annals of Egyptian architecture. Her dedication to both tradition and innovation created a legacy that, while faint in surviving records, echoed loudly in the history of Egyptian queenship. Her reign marked a clear shift. A woman was not merely a placeholder or regent, she could be pharaoh in her own right. Sobekneferu's rule ended abruptly in 1802 BC. There are no records of a violent death, nor any signs of revolt. Egyptologists speculate that she died naturally, possibly due to the genetic consequences of centuries of royal incest. The location of her tomb remains unknown. Some believe that an unfinished pyramid at Masduna, located near the complex of Amenemhat IV, may have been intended for her. If true, it would mean she had prepared her final resting place as any true king would. But unlike many rulers whose graves have been found and catalogued, her burial remains elusive, a mystery that deepens the intrigue around her reign. Her sudden death marked the end of the 12th dynasty. What followed was a decline in centralized authority and a slow unraveling of the Middle Kingdom's golden age. Her departure closed a chapter of Egyptian history marked by unity, architecture, and intellectual brilliance. Sobekneferu's memory, like many female rulers of Egypt, was selectively recorded and in some cases deliberately erased. Her name, while preserved in some official lists like Karnak and Saqqara, was excluded from the more prestigious Abydos king list. This act was more than omission, it was a political decision to define history according to patriarchal ideals. Hatshepsut, arguably the most successful female pharaoh in Egyptian history, was also erased in a similar fashion, with her statues defaced and inscriptions chiseled out. The denial of female pharaohs from official records shows how deeply gender norms were woven into Egypt's spiritual and political identity. Despite these attempts, Sobekneferu's legacy persisted. Her artifacts, the remnants of her name on scarabs and temple inscriptions, and the sheer impact of her rise to power continued to fascinate historians and Egyptologists. She paved the way for other women in power, even if the path remained fraught with resistance. Her reign stands as a testament to what happens when divine order bends for necessity, and when a woman rises not because of whim or rebellion, but because she is the only one capable of carrying the weight of a kingdom. In modern times, Sobekneferu has become a symbol of female leadership, a figure reclaimed by those seeking to tell the full, unfiltered history of ancient civilizations. She is remembered not merely as the first female pharaoh, but as a fully empowered ruler who wore the crown with dignity, strength, and grace. She reminds us that history is not just what survives, it is also what was silenced. Every seal, statue, and missing record is a fragment of a greater truth. Sobekneferu's courage to rule in defiance of cultural norms reshaped what was possible for women in positions of power, even in a society as rigidly traditional as ancient Egypt. While we may never discover her tomb or fully reconstruct her lost monuments, her name, the beauty of Sobek, endures as a beacon through the sands of time. Through mystery, power, and perseverance, Sobekneferu secured her place in eternity. She was not a queen who ruled on behalf of a king. She was the king, the pharaoh, the divine authority on earth. And through her reign, Egypt, even if briefly, belonged to the will and wisdom of a woman.